that we've now been teaching it, well, since 2002, that's 12 years.
What if you could time travel with them? Visit mythical places or angelic realms, other worlds, other galaxies. Help others to speak to their higher selves. You can. Dolores has taught thousands of people from across the world how to use QHHT, and now you can learn her method by going directly to dolorescannon.com. And don't forget to mention the discount code MORETALKS. Have you ever wondered, can you communicate directly with spirit guides, teachers, or non-physical consciousness, or even our higher selves? What would they tell us? My name is Kevin Moore, and since 2015, I started to practice a form of communication which is termed channeling. I have been interviewing experts on my talk show to find out, does life continue after we die, and can we communicate with those that have crossed over? With each expert I spoke to, they all had different ideas. Is there knowledge from the past which could be shared with the present moment? So I thought, why not just speak to the non-physical world directly through channelers around the world? And that's what I set out to do. They Call Us Channelers will take the viewers on a journey into the phenomena known as channeling. And my main goal with this docuseries is to bring a new understanding and awareness to channeling by looking within ourselves and asking, is it truly possible that we can all use this innate ability?
Well, I've been here on and off for 30 years. I'm now living here for the fifth time, over 30 years. And I spent about 15 years here, over the last 30 years, about half that time's been here, in and out.
And when you're not at Sedona then, what other parts of the US are you sort of based in then?
Well, before I came back here in 2012 with my young son and his mother, I had been away for 7 years living in LA. And doing my music there and making the scene in Hollywood and LA with my music was great. But then all of a sudden I had a partner and a son on the way. And after he was born, they decided they want to come back to Sedona and experience Sedona. So that's what brought me back this most recent time.
So let's go back to prior to, I guess you could call it your awakening experience, right?
Yeah.
Who was Peter prior to that then?
Well, before I came to Sedona, I was living in Colorado for 10 years. In Aspen, I was a ski instructor, and I was living that kind of outdoor lifestyle up there. And but I've always been kind of had a mystical leaning. It started as a child, and this is all in my book. I talk about it, but I started having mystical experiences at a very young age. And my grandmother, my mother's side, my Irish grandmother, was one of my caretakers when I was a young boy, 5, 6, 7, 8. And she was a mystic and a meditator and a soul traveler. And so she started whispering things in my ear. And the main thing she told me as a child was, Peter, listen to your inner voice. Listen to your inner voice. And she would tell me this over and over again and whispered into my ear as I was falling asleep, And she got me really connected at a young age. And so I started hearing that inner voice and it started guiding me. And long story short, it guided me to the harp, led me on my journey.
Right. And am I right to say that there was sort of no musical background prior to your awakening?
Well, I showed a glimmer of music as a young child. This is in the book as well. When I was 6, I sat down at the family upright piano in the living room that had been passed down through generations of my family. And all of a sudden, I started playing by ear, both hands up the white and black keys of the piano. And it just started coming through. And I got really quite good. My mother would come in and sit and listen to me play. And then she started inviting friends to come over and listen to me play. It was like a nightly thing after school. But then what happened, I used to say that I was composing my masterpieces. But then she had a friend come over who was an accomplished piano player. He was actually a Hollywood actor. His name was Gary Cooper. Okay. Famous actor. My mother was friends with him. He came over and he saw me play. I think it was him. But whoever it was, he said, "Oh, you're not doing it right. You're going to have to take proper lessons." Because of course I was just a little child, just doing what I was naturally. And all of a sudden when he said that to me, I thought, what do you mean I'm not doing it right? And if I can't do it my way, I don't want to do it. So I kind of walked away. That was the end of my piano career, when he short-circuited my creativity, my intuitive channeling that was happening, and people were amazed. And then he just turned off the switch by shaming me that I was doing it wrong,
Oh my gosh. So we've got Gary Cooper to blame for that initially. Or was it to blame for, or was he playing a part, do you think?
Maybe he was. I don't know. But, when I started playing the harp so many years later, in my 30s, the first melodies that started coming through on the harp were very reminiscent of the music I was playing as a child. I had kind of a childlike quality to it. And I just flashed on, I go, oh my God, I'm picking up where I left off. This is the music that wanted to come through then. So I think that's where it started.
Take me to the time when you were living out of your car, and how near that was to your awakening experience, or whether you'd had your awakening experience at that point.
Right. Well, I had already pretty much had it. When I look back on my life, I think I've been awake like most of my life. I didn't have like one big experience and all of a sudden I was spiritually awake. It was something that even as a teenage, my grandmother planted those seeds. And then in high school, I started exploring Eastern philosophies, and then started reading Carlos Castaneda, the shamanic teachings there at 14 and 15, 16. And so I have a long history on this path. And I've always felt like I was being somehow divinely guided to discover something in my life and really discover who I am and why I'm here,
Absolutely. So let's go to the awakening experience and we'll go from there. So what was your awakening experience then?
Well, I mean, maybe you're referring to what happened to me
in the process. Yeah.
So, I was already awake, and then I got this message that I should leave Aspen, that lifestyle was over. There was something more for me in my life. And I was an artist. I've always been an artist, and I always had this love of stained glass. So I said, I'm going to move. And I started hearing about this spiritual mecca called Sedona in the Southwest. And this was in the late 80s. This is before the internet. So I couldn't Google it and learn more, but people were talking about this mystical power spot in the desert Southwest of Northern Arizona. So I just intuitively felt drawn to it. And then through circumstance, I met a guy in Aspen who owned a home in Sedona that was vacant. And he said, go down to my house and check it out, which I did. And when I first drove down Oak Creek Canyon, I was just so struck by the beauty and the majesty of the rocks. And it just immediately, it felt like home. And so I went into town and I just fell in love with it. And I moved there a month later. But and I set up my art studio at this house, started doing stained glass. But then after about a year, I got a message that I'm going to go on a vision quest. I should acquire a Volkswagen camper van, be self-sufficient. Spirit was going to lead me. My inner voice was going to lead me on this journey of discovery. So I did. I released all my possessions, got a Volkswagen van. And for 3 years, I lived in my van. And I was just doing my spiritual practice and just going out to the canyons here and sitting in silence and doing my energy techniques, my clearing techniques, my DNA activation techniques, everything I could to raise my vibration and clear and release the past and heal my trauma and my pain and heal my inner child and do all this work and talk to ETs and connect with that, all of that. But then what happened, really the main thing that happened was, as I was sitting in the silence, I began to hear the subtle strains of some sort of music. and I was opening, my inner ear was opening to the inner music. And I was doing very deep shamanic work at the time, all sorts of plant medicines. And then really the kind of the capstone is when I started exploring using ketamine in an isolation tank in the flotation sensory deprivation. Because I had studied the work of Dr. John Lilly, who developed the flotation tank. And then I met him years prior, and I was familiar with his work with ketamine. But then, this is all in my book, by the way. But then through circumstance, I met a veterinarian who had offered to give me some, but I had to go up to the Hopi reservation, to the Indian reservation, and go to the Kachina dances, see the ceremony with the Hopi. And then he gave me, I probably shouldn't say that so much about him on the air because I don't want to get in trouble. But, back in those days, it was all very highly illegal to carry this material from me. But now it's legal. We have legal ketamine therapy, psychotherapy assisted ketamine therapy here in Sedona now. But yeah, then I got in the float tank with the ketamine. And when I would leave my body, that's when I met the angels on the other side. They were waiting for me. And then a relationship ensued and we developed a telepathic communication. So I did about 60 ketamine journeys. And every time I would do it, because I was injecting it at the time, right? It was liquid. And intramuscularly, I'd go out in my van and just put in earplugs by myself in the forest, put on a, eye cover and just lay back for 45 minutes and float out of my body. And every time I would do it, these angels, these little cherubs would be waiting for me. And they took me on all these incredible journeys. But ultimately what happened, they revealed to me that my mission was to play the harp and channel the angels' music at this time of the dawning of the golden age and the ascension, because music carries these pure frequencies of the harp is like no other instrument. It's the harmonics and the tone is so healing. That's why it's been played in the healing temples throughout antiquity in Egypt and Greece and ancient Sumeria and probably in Atlantis before that, so it's the most mystical instrument, I think, through antiquity is the harp. And it's found all over the world. So
you would say this was channeled then?
Well, absolutely. So what happened was once I met the angels and they told me that I was play the harp, and I decided that I agreed to that. And I said, okay, I'll go down this path with you. That a harp came into my life. About a week later, I met somebody who had a small harp for sale, which I purchased for a few $100s. And it had a little carrying case. And I would hike out into the forest and take out my magic harp and put my hands to the strings. Immediately, there was, just by doing these simple kind of, and then just noodling a little bit, then all of a sudden my hands started to move on the strings and energy would come over me. It was powerful. At first, I wasn't sure. I was actually quite terrified of it. But the thing was, the feeling that came with it was one of pure bliss and ecstasy, and love was coming through. And I was listening to my inner voice, and the angels were telling me, they're saying, trust, surrender, and let go. So as I did that, I could just completely relax my hands, put them to the strings, and all of a sudden my hands and fingers would start moving by themselves. And I could just watch my hands moving. I was not in control of it. There was an energy coming through. And then years later, what I discovered is I had my personal harp teacher was like a feminine type of energy of an angelic, but it would what's called overshadow me. And I would receive these kind of energetic impulses that would come into my nervous system and move my hands. And as I got more comfortable, and I was shown that this angel would actually completely kind of come into my body as I was playing, kind of merge with me, very similar to like in the movie Ghost with Whoopi Goldberg, how, his spirit would come in to the body of, so he could be with his beloved. So it was a very similar kind of experience, like very powerful. And it would happen. My hands would be trembling. My eyes would be tearing profusely, and it'd be like Niagara Falls in my armpits and just so hot, such a high, intense, fiery vibration, That's why I had to do a few years of a really deep clearing and tonifying, refining my nervous system before I connected with him, because because I was blowing it open with psychedelics. And you know what happens to a lot of people? It's too much and they go kind of cuckoo. And I was on the edge. There were times where I thought I was losing my mind. I had to go to one of my best friends. I was like, is this really happening? And he would tell me, yes, it's really happening. I'm here. Keep going. It's incredible. And I was just, at times I would doubt what was happening. I couldn't believe I was having a conversation with angels. I was like, I must be going crazy. But the angels would continually leave these little signs and symbols and synchronicities to show me that it's real. This is really happening,
Absolutely. I mean, oh God, all those out of body experiences, like you say, they were connecting with them telepathically. I suppose you got to learn a little bit about, what the angels are. I mean, did you?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. What did you discover?
Well, what I discovered about the cherubs, and I write about this in great detail, some of the most pivotal experiences and the things that they showed me about the domain in which they live. They're the celestial angelic realm, extraordinary places they showed me. But ultimately what happened was this one time I was with them, and I was with about a group of about 12 angels or so. There was a little flock of cherubs around me that I was working with. And one time I was just kind of floating. The first time I connected with them and we discovered we could communicate. They said, come on, we want to show you something. So I'm out of my body, in ketamine, I'm in my etheric body or whatever. And two angels came, one on either side of me, and they picked me up under the arm, and all of a sudden they started flying. So here I am flying with angels in my astral body. And I'm looking back and I don't have feet. I have like sparkly fairy dust coming off of me. So, and then eventually they let go and they just let me fly on my own. So I like that, flying with angels. I'm going to have to work on that something. But ultimately, this one point I was with them, they stopped and we were surrounded by darkness. And I was looking around and they point and they go, look up there. And I look up there and there's like a star, a little pinpoint of light. And all of a sudden, we start moving towards it. And it's getting bigger and bigger. And all of a sudden, it turns into this luminous sphere of golden light. And it's just like burning like 1,000 suns. It's very intense, the light. But they're like, just relax, just trust, surrender, and let go. So as I just let go into it, all of a sudden, I was being bathed in this golden light that was this sphere of luminous golden light that was pulsating pure love, like divine love. The feeling was like nothing I'd ever experienced before. And as I was having the experience, it was like this light, this divine love was just cleansing me and clearing me of all the, trauma of all my lifetimes, all the sorrow and grief of my soul that I've carried from life to life, was just cleansed from me. And the angels, when I looked at them, they told me, they said, this is God. They said, this is the source of all love and light in the universe. And, many people that have had near-death experiences report seeing this ball of golden light that's pulsating pure love. And then what happened years later, I was invited to be a presenter at the International Association of Near-Death Studies of their annual international conference. And I came up, told my story, and played my harp. And they wanted to hear from me because they realized that the psychedelic experience is very much like a near-death experience. So they wanted me to talk about ketamine and everything I did. There were like 1,000 people in the audience, and they loved it. I got like a standing ovation, So
wow,
yeah.
What a journey that you've been on. Gosh. Yeah. So why do you think there are angels out there? What do you think their primary purpose is then?
Well, I think they're here to assist humanity on our evolutionary journey to reunite with our divinity and with God. Personally, I believe for me, the angels, my personal guardian angels, and we all have at least one angel around us from the time of birth. This is something we've all kind of been told our whole lives, and it's true. And I think our personal guardian angels, they endeavor to keep us out of harm's way. But I think on the big picture, they're wanting to unite us with our divinity within. The soul God's love that's within all of us. We're a part of the whole. And to get us connected to our divine guidance and the source of light within ourselves so that we can fulfill our divine destiny, whatever that may be, and just become one with God again. And I think they're also here at this time more and more because very similar that we're in this pandemic and, kind of the modern dark ages right now, very similar to like in history with the Black Plague and the Dark Ages. Out of that emerged the great Renaissance of the new literature and art and music and architecture that sprung forth out of that dark time. So I think we're in a similar, and the angels played a very pivotal role in overshadowing and inspiring many of the great composers and artists like Michelangelo, who saw the angels. He painted the cherubs. That's what they look like. They're like little chubby babies, but they have these mature adult-like faces, and they're very deep. And the cherubs are like, well, go ahead. You want to say something?
No, I want you. Please continue. I've got so much I want to say. Please continue.
So, the cherubs, people think of cherubs like, oh, the little cute chubby babies, but actually the cherubs are one of the highest order of angels, apparently in angelology, in the 9 choirs. The cherubs exist the closest to the throne of God, to the fire. They're the closest to the fire of divinity, of that luminous sphere of light. Because when I saw the luminous sphere, when I was with the angels, as I was looking at it, then I started to notice there was something around it. So I started to adjust my inner vision. And then to my astonishment, I saw that this luminous sphere of golden love was surrounded by the multitudes of angels of all shapes and sizes that were spiraling in eternity, singing praises and salutations to the source of all love, to God. And they're in this ecstatic, rapturous state of being, just in bliss and ecstasy. It's amazing. And it's going on right now. Even as you and I are talking right now, this is happening up on this higher dimension or inside this other dimension in the quantum,
Yes, absolutely. And your book is titled
Hearing the Angels Sing, A True Story of Angelic Assistance.
Okay, now this originally came out, was it
2012?
2012. Oh gosh, yes, 2012. Oh my gosh. And there must have been a reason for it coming out in 2012, and it's still very popular now. And with the book, you get a free CD of some of your tracks as well.
Yep.
We're going to play back one of the tracks in just a moment, but that's been a book that has just gained a new audience and continues to gain a new audience, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. And I think the way I wrote the book and the way the angels guided me to write it is it's kind of, the book is a portal. So when you read it, it really takes you into the angels' world. And by playing the music that comes with it in the background as you're reading it, you're getting kind of this full sensory immersive experience where it really comes to life. And I've had many, many letters from people that have been very, very touched by the book. And it has an energy, it has a vibration in it, and really can let the readers have a glimpse or have a sense of what it might be like to be up in these higher dimensions with these beautiful angelic light beings.
Absolutely. Your website is?
harpmagic.com.
Okay. Now on there, you've got, you've got the tours that you do. So in Sedona, you do tours. Just very briefly, what are the tours that you have been doing? I'm guessing they're going back into being on right now.
Yeah. So I've been a guide here for 30 years. I started doing tours here in the early 90s, working for one of the first spiritual tour company here. So they trained me. And then over the years, as I was touring with my music and performing concerts, I would tell my Sedona stories, and then people would come here and they'd want me to take them out on the land, which I did. So I started doing my own tours. And now I have a Jeep, I have a large van that I take groups and individuals out into the backcountry, to the sacred sites, to the power spots. And I do my sound healing work. I bring a small harp with me. I have crystal bowls and other sound tools. We call in the angels. I get people connected to the angels out there, and to this vibration, this energy here that's a very high vibration that's can be very life-changing and transformational for people. People come from all over the world now to sit and feel the energy here. And I'm an ambassador to Sedona's sacred sites.
Oh, yes, they do. And we're going to get into the healing properties of the music as well. And obviously on your website, you've got your music. And there's how many albums is actually on the website? There's a number of albums,
16.
isn't it? 16 albums. Okay.
Yeah.
So all these albums are available to preview on there, and you can purchase them with direct links to iTunes and Amazon Music. And of course,
by a little footnote here, in last year, 2021, my album Sanctuary of Light won the Hollywood Music and Media Award for Best New Age Ambient Album of the Year. So I also won the Cover Award last year too, the Cover Visionary Award for Best New Age Ambient Album of the Year in the Coalition of Visionary Resources. So
before this interview, I only got to listen to a slightly small portion of the music, and even what I heard was like, oh my God, this is so good.
Right.
And because when people think of harps and everything else, but there's something very healing to this music. So you obviously, you've taken, what have people got from the healing properties of the music that you've done? What's been the feedback?
Oh my God, just so many testimonials. And on my website, there's a tab that says letters and comments you can review. But I have everything from people healing cancer, apparently, with my music, to couples that were infertile, could not conceive child. They put on my music and all of a sudden they conceive a child. And just reduction of pain. A lot of depression has been alleviated by my music. People that were struggling for years with depression, my music has lifted them out of that because of the vibration of it and the way it touches the heart. And many people have reported having kind of paranormal experiences with it by actually seeing angels appear in the room as they're listening, or seeing deceased loved ones, or feeling touched by an angel as they're listening. And it really does. The music is a portal where if you close your eyes and open up your imagination in your mind's eye, you can go on these incredible journeys, because the music creates these kind of sonic landscapes of the imagination, and things appear in one's consciousness, in one's awareness when you do that. It's just the way the angels work. The music creates a space for the angels to come into the house. When you play the music in the house, it attracts angels into your home. When you play in the car, it draws angels to you and actually creates an aura of protection around you, which I think is very important right now in this day and age, because, there's so much crazy stuff going on. I think connecting with one's personal angelic team is super important, because people are trying to figure out, making major life decisions. What should we do? Where should I go? And if they're just trying to figure it out with the mind, it could be like a house of mirrors and you can make some wrong decisions. So getting one connected to their divine guidance with your personal angels to maybe give you, who have this great overview of everything. We can't quite see it like they can, and they can help to direct us and point us in the right direction.
Oh, absolutely. And I think that's so important, isn't it? It's the time now as well. Yes, it's great to, get a reading from someone, or, to get that sort of, that help sometimes, that lifeline. But it's to know that actually as well, day to day, that you can connect within, and it may feel like it's your voice coming through back sometimes, but, it's that wiser, more loving, more caring, just deeper presence of information that can come through sometimes when you let it. And as you say, with this type of music, right, this beautiful music, that can be a process, that be part of your process, part of your practice maybe.
Definitely, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you've got that wonderful harp that's next to you right now. What is the history of that harp? Because
this harp, particular one?
Yeah.
Well, this is the oldest harp that I've had. This one's been with me now I got this in 1994. My father bought it for me. When I realized that music was the path I wanted to go down, and I needed a bigger, more professional instrument, I begged because I didn't have any money at the time. These are expensive. This is like a $5,000 instrument. And I was like, how am I going to get money for that? Because I was just a wandering spiritual seeker gypsy back in the time, living in my van. And my dad, he stepped up. He said, okay, I see you're really serious about that. And he was quite well off. So he gave me the money to get this harp, and it's still my main axe I perform with. And this harp and I, Cathedra is her name. We have a long history together, and she's recorded many of my records. And it's got a sweet spirit and a wonderful warm tone, very healing.
When you record the records, where do you go to do that? Do you have your own recording studio?
I do it right here, right where I'm sitting to you talking right now. I'm in my office recording studio here. So I've got all my gear right in here, and I'm lucky I can record right here at home. So my last several albums I recorded right here. My award-winning albums I have a very modest setup compared to some people, but it's very streamlined. But I'm able, as you'll hear on there, I'm able to get a really nice sound.
God, you are. Yeah. Because I was wondering, how is he doing that? So obviously you have a pickup microphone somewhere that picks up.
Oh, I have some really nice microphones.
I bet you do. Yes, I thought so. Yeah, to get the quality that's on those tracks, absolutely. Yeah. And again, it's all guided. It's all working with your group as well. If there was one member of your group that stuck out, that's always connected with you, could you sort of recognize that?
One of the angels.
Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't really received any names or any distinct kind of personalities with them, because they kind of live in this state of oneness with each other. And they're relatively androgynous, it seems. So I have not been able to discern a distinct name with any of them. And I'm often asked that question, but it just hasn't been revealed to me at this time. Maybe at some point, maybe when I leave my earthly body and reunite with them again over there.
Yeah, but I mean, I guess on your day-to-day sort of, if you've got something that you're really trying to tune into whether you should do this or not, or whatever the decision may be, but you sort of it's sort of checking in as well. That group's with you, working with you on when you sort of get that answer back within from that even intuition. There's that group there in the background. That's my point.
Oh, for sure. I mean, they're always there with me all the time. I'm one with them now because of so much of the time I spent with them on the other side during those early days. And, it's kind of fused into my DNA, and they're always giving me little sparkles of light and little kind of signs that they're with me. And so I never feel like I'm separate from them.
No. And do you feel that, in the times that we live in now, obviously this book was written in 2012, but do you think that book is, and I'm sure it is, it's still very relevant to the times that we live in now, because that energy is still there, and we're going through a great change, aren't we?
Yeah, well, I think really the main thrust of the book is really about connecting with angels and how I did it. And so I share techniques and methods that I use throughout the book so people could also to make that connection. That was really what the book was about. That's why the angels wanted me to write it. And it had to get out by 2012, because we didn't really know what was going to happen after 2012 and the end of the Mayan calendar. I thought maybe, who knows what's going to happen, So I said, I was showing, you better get this book done now, so it's in the public record. Because my story is really quite incredible. I mean, I have to say, I've heard a lot of angel encounter stories, but I think mine is really one of the top ones that's out there.
Yes, especially with the music that is, that's taken place, is because let's just remind ourselves, you were not classically trained. I don't believe that you were. As you've explained, there was no formal sort of music training at all.
No, I mean, even to this day, I really don't know any music theory. I play strictly by ear and from the heart.
That's just incredible. That really is. And you've met some famous people as well, I would have thought, on your journey.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, I started touring all over, and then I made a lot of connections. And for years, I worked with Neil Donald Walsh. I worked with Doreen Virtue, who's a best-selling author of angel books. I toured with her for several years, playing my harp at her workshops and seminars. She really helped me a lot. She introduced me to thousands of people in my time with her. And who else? I mean, I've been with Marianne Williamson, James Van Praagh, Canyon Brinkley. I mean, so many people, because I'm the harp guy. I'm like the only one in our kind of new age community that's playing the harp, you know?
Absolutely, yeah, yeah. Well, I don't know of any others. Absolutely. So, yeah, with Doreen Virtue, she did obviously transition over to back to her religious side, or maybe she was never religious, but she's gone back there. Have you ever kept in contact with her since then? Since her sort of.
Well, I spoke to her a few years ago when she had her come to Jesus kind of thing happened, and I had heard, so I called her up because I still have her phone number in my phone. I don't know if it's still good. We haven't talked in a few years, but I did call her up. I said, Doreen, what's up? What's happening? She said, well, I had this experience. And she told me the whole thing, of what happened to her. And I was great because in my book, I write about my encounter with Jesus that was very, very powerful on, in the ketamine journey. There were a couple times when he came to me and he appeared to me. It was very powerful, and it helped to move me to the next level because I was going through thresholds of fear, that were kind of holding me back to fully embody the totality of who I am. And he showed up to reassure me and encourage me to keep moving forward on several occasions. Yeah.
I mean, with Doreen, I think she feels that anything channeled or anything new age is obviously of the devil.
Yeah,
but that's her path. That's her path.
Yeah, that's her thing. She's extreme, and she had, I've had several other friends that have a similar awakening to Jesus, and then they started, bashing all of their new age practices that they were doing before and on social media. Now they just quote the Bible and stuff. And they were yelling at everybody, telling all of their friends that you're all doing the devil's work and all this stuff. But then another friend, now she's mellowed out. She's kind of come back and she's integrated, and it's, incorporating all these things. So with Doreen, I was like, great. I'm glad you finally got to have a Jesus experience, But now she said, I said, Doreen, are you still working with the angels? She said, I am, but only with the biblical angels, only the ones that are mentioned in the Bible. She doesn't really talk about Archangel Michael or Gabriel or the archangels or any of that. But she just does biblical angels now.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Yeah. Well, thank you for that. That's because I don't know many people that knew her back in the day. And it's just very, very interesting as well. So, do you feel that there's a galactic connection or sort of a galactic consciousness connection with the music that you do as well at all? Or
absolutely. I mean, the galactic connection is a big part of me because, I write about it in the book. I had really powerful channeling experiences here before I met the angels. Actually, I was having really strong ET encounters here. And I started to channel these symbols. I can show you. I think I got one up here somewhere. Let me see. These symbols, and I was making these out of glass. I started making these beautiful kind of pendant. This could clip on, So this was like a Pleiadian symbol, I believe. So I had what I call this is very old. This is like 30 years old, this piece. I was receiving, what did I call them? Galactic symbols from the Federation of Free Worlds or something. I would go up on my van at night and look at the stars and hold these up. And I'm like, who are you? And I started having all this phenomena happen. And so that really, and my album Center of the Circle is kind of a galactic space album. So that's a big part of what I do because Sedona is really a galactic starport here. And there's a lot of ET energy here. And in 2009, I was in LA and I was in an ayahuasca ceremony with a group of people. And I had an out-of-body experience there where I was beamed aboard a spacecraft. And I was there were two gray aliens on the ship that telepathically communicated to me. And they told me something about 2012 and the coming of a galactic pulse from the center of the galaxy of light, a wave of light that's coming our way, because they told me the galaxy pulsates. And man, and then I found NASA had science on it and the whole thing. I wrote a whole paper on it. I did some interviews about it. I got on Project Camelot with that David Wilcock and Carrie Cassidy started back in the early 2000s with whistleblowers. So they invited me and did a 50-minute interview with me about this experience and what the ETs had told me. And I was the only interviewee that had a disclaimer at the start of their interview that they had to put on me because they didn't agree. But the ETs told me that, you know, this was going to be a really intense thing when this galactic pulse arrives.
What do you think you're getting out of this in a sense? What does this all do for you in a sense, would you say?
What am I getting out of it? Ultimately, hopefully I'm getting some sort of salvation and redemption in the end and being able to have access in, you know, for the ascension directive. You know, I mean, my life here, I'm very blessed. I have a great life. But of course, you know, there's something beyond this life. I've been on the other side enough that my soul is longing to return to that luminous sphere of golden light and bathe in that celestial radiance. That's where my soul lives, in that eternal landscape. I look forward to going back and experiencing that again sometime. And so I know that when my time comes, whenever that is, that's where I'm going. And I have a place that's waiting for me there. And so that's what really inspires me, and that's what encouraged me, and that's what gives me hope. And I'm hopeful that this kind of celestial light is streaming down upon humanity now, and people are being uplifted by this kind of divine radiance, and their souls are starting to come into resonance as like the veils are thinning, the portals are opening. You know, there's a lot of things going on within the quantum fields of things. And I believe we are in the quickening now, and we are in the final phases, kind of coming to a close here of this kind of 3D experience. And you know, we're standing on the threshold of such extraordinary innovations within our world, and new science, new technology, new art that could possibly create a whole new world for us, you know, kind of a golden age, perhaps the long prophesied golden age. We're really standing on the threshold. This is what the angels continually to tell me. So people are losing hope now in a lot, but my mission is to try to instill hope. That's why the second to the last song on my current album, The Winding Way, is called Hope for Tomorrow. And it really has a beautiful panorama in it that opens up with the birds and nature singing its symphony. And I believe there is a glorious, although there's a lot of negativity and a lot to be concerned about, of course, but I believe in the magic, you know, something mystical and magic is going to happen. I think is going to blow our minds, you know?
Yes, I agree that we are in this time of great change. And I think, personally, though, I think we're only at the beginning of it. But you know, what's a few hundred years maybe? No, I'm sure it's not going to take that long. But I do feel that we're still at the beginning of it. And as you say, this is, yeah, as the angels have said to you, this is the time. And I think maybe it did start with 2012. You was on the precipice of that, you know, with your book and everything else. But that has continued. And it's a very interesting time to be alive right now. It really is.
Yeah,
and,
you know, I mean, if you look at things purely in a 3D kind of perspective, kind of a linear perspective, 3D, it can be pretty daunting and perhaps frightening and terrifying even. But because of all the work I've done, and my perceptions have just expanded, where I kind of see things holographically. I kind of have eyes in the back of my head spiritually. And so, you know, I don't see time as moving linear. I kind of see things through a sense of simultaneity. So even though there's this kind of dawning of the golden age ahead of us, it's actually happening now in the here and now. So I think the more that people can come into the here and now, be here now, into the 0 point of their own being, then there's energy there. There's energy, there's inspiration, and there's hope. and there's new insight, and there's an expanded vision that occurs. So, of course, it seems like we're all being kind of ramrodded down a certain thing where, like, the powers that be are trying to take control of the collective consciousness of humanity and tell us what we need to do, what we need to, and trying to steer humanity in a path. But, when you're woke or awakened, then you start to move to the beat of a different drum. There's a new timing, calibration, orientation to time, and our perspectives and our viewpoints change to become more inclusive and take a perspective of more unifying things, and seeing the interconnectedness of all things. That's one of the main things the angels have shown me continuously, is how all these things are connected and they're not separate. And when you start to see that, then your consciousness flowers and opens up, and then you transcend the limitations of the third dimension, and we're starting to become more 5D, because 5D, as the angels show me, that's the first dimensional plane we need to get to experience the oneness. Unification is in that unified field of oneness that Einstein was even talking about, the unified field theory. He was tapping into that fifth dimensional unified plane in the quantum, and that's what's coming to us now. That's where we're going. This is where we are, even.
Absolutely. So what would you say then? What would you say then is an important message to leave the audience with?
Well, as I was saying a moment ago, to have hope, to don't lose hope, and to, as the angels have always told me, trust, surrender, and let go, and allow this higher power to start to move through your life. Call forth your angels, develop that relationship, unify with your personal angels, and start trusting their divine guidance, and make that connection with your own higher self. And magic will happen in your life. New love, new light will come to you. And it makes life so much more enjoyable when you're playing on multiple levels like that. So your angels are waiting for you. So call out to them with your heart song and enjoy.
And your website is, one last time, Peter?
harpmagic.com, harpmagic.com.
Okay, well, thank you so much. I'll just let you play us out, and I really appreciate you coming on. Thank you.
Thank you for having me, Kevin. It's been a pleasure to be here with you and your listeners.